So welcome everyone. And this is our second podcast that we are going to talk about ITIL 4. And I am Romaric, ITIL 4 certified. And this is...
I'm Alex. Hi, nice to be back. Thank you very much. Also, ITIL 4 certified and managing professional and ambassador. Very amazing. And also a well trainer.
Yeah, you also, that's, let's say, the most important thing. You are actually an ITIL 4 expert. And question will actually be on incident management, and those questions will come to you and not to me, because I certainly do not have the expertise to answer those questions, but you do. So let's get it started. Incident management, we don't only want to talk about theories here, we want to talk also about practice. So how do you design incident management processes, and how do you put them actually into practice? And then potentially, what are best case scenarios and best practices that you can put in place in incident management. But before we get into that, everybody is saying that they know what incident management is about. But I observe that we all have a bit different understanding about what incident management is about. Now, question to you, Alex, not that you give the full theory on what incident management is about, but could you define it in a way that resonates with people who are working outside IT? Because eventually incident management, it affects everyone, right? This is not only an IT thing, this is, company-wide, right? So how would you define it for people who are non-IT?
Yeah, I would say if it was working already and now it's not working anymore, then it's incident management. Something broke. Because you also have a difference with development stuff. If it has never been working before, right? It was developed and it didn't work and now it still doesn't work, right? Then it's a bug and needs to be fixed, and it might look a little bit differently. Maybe handle agile ways of working, put it into the next sprint backlog, whatever. That's fine. But if it has already been working, right, and now it's not, well, that's an incident. And for me, it makes a very, very, very clear, differentiation between everything else as well. Because then you have problems, which are underlying causes and stuff like that. And I've also seen it happening in real life that people don't understand the difference between an incident and a service request. And I don't know. For me, it's quite clear. But then again, if it's broken, it's an incident. If it's something else the user wants, like, I don't know, anything like a software installation or whatever, access rights to something, it's a service request. But if it's broken and it shouldn't be, and it's an incident.
Okay, so it's kind of, it used to work, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly it doesn't.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Then I want to have, obviously, a solution as a user,
yeah.
right? Okay. Now, why do we need incident management, right? So I understand you made the definition of what an incident is. Why do we need to manage those incidents? Where would that be useful?
Well, putting the business train back on track. If anybody see the videos, I probably use this term as well. But that's the case. You're putting out fires. You want to minimize the impact on the business, because if it's broken, right, users cannot continue their work. And you might have small incidents, right, low priority stuff where whatever one user is maybe affected, and it's maybe not even an important business application or business service which is affected. Then it's okay. But then you might also have some bigger ones, right? And for those, you will need a separate procedure. First of all, they would be major incidents, right? And that kind of stuff might even invoke disaster recovery procedures, like, business continuity stuff. And then you might also have security incidents, right? And that's what's ITIL also telling you, that you need to have separate procedures for those things, just because you have a higher urgency and you need to act like ASAP because the house is burning. You're going to put it out. So you are the firefighters in this case, huh?
Okay, so let's imagine that maybe I have a small company, and let's say I'm in the software industry, and I start to have a software which is quite popular, and I have a base of users, and then there are incidents happening on the software. So again, it used to work before, it doesn't. What would be the consequences, right, if I don't properly manage those incidents in a systemic way? So maybe sometime it will be, just call this guy, or just call that guy, or send us an email, and it's not streamlined. So what are the consequences of that?
Well, first of all, you would probably have difficulties to uphold your business. Why? Because it's just, as you said, it's unmanageable. Hey, you cannot control what is happening. You don't have procedures in place, which means that people are running around like chickens, where the head was cut off, and they're just trying to figure it out on the fly, ad hoc. And that costs a lot of time. So if you don't have procedures, probably the very first thing that would happen is that you just lose time, because you need to figure out which the right person is. You need to figure out if they are working or if they're not. Maybe they are sick, and then you need to find somebody else instead of them, and so that it's exhausting. So if you have predefined procedures in place, that might help. And it's also connected very often to the SLAs in the end, right? Where you say that you have a medium priority incident, and then you have resolution times for half a day or 2 days or whatever, depends on how you define your SLAs in these regards, how you define your KPIs as well, KPIs, I mean. And it comes down to what you need to deliver to your own customers, right? Because in the end, you're putting back the business train on track. So you make sure that everything works as it's supposed to. You are restoring normal service operation. And that's, normal is defined by what the customer needs, right? And that's put into the SLA. So that's the goal. So if you don't do that, first of all, customer satisfaction is going to drop, right? And you're going to have a lot of issues between first level, second level, and other support levels, like, service desk and, application support teams, or engineering teams, or system infrastructure teams and stuff like that, because they're just going to clash all the time. Like, this is your issue. No, this is my issue. But if you define this clearly, responsibilities, and then maybe you have a nice categorization system as well, maybe even something that can be automated. AI can be used here as well. And then, and then it's just going to be much faster. It's just going to work. I mean, ideally, Real life might look a little bit different still, but that's the idea behind incident management.
Mm-hmm. So what you are saying is kind of, okay, if you don't have those processes in place, not only will you lose time, you will lose resources, you lose in efficiency, customer satisfaction drop down.
Yeah, and trust as well.
Trust is broken, and you may lose basically your customers, right?
Wow, that's a very, very black picture, but yes, might happen. Worst case scenario, sure.
So that kind of, it's all about managing customer expectation, right? And trying to reestablish, the service level. I mean, this incident, to fix it as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Depending, I guess, on the severity.
Yeah.
But you will tell us more about this in a few minutes. Okay, now what will be for you, or what you have seen as the biggest misconception about incident management? Something that people get it wrong, every time, right? They just they think, incident management is this, and no, sorry guys, that's not what this is about. Or girls. So, what have you seen actually?
Well, I guess the biggest issues happening is between understanding if it's an incident or something else. Making the differentiation between the different procedures or practices in this case, which you want to actually start up. Somebody calls the service desk and says, I have this. I need a new headset. You say, okay, if you need a new headset, right, there will be a service request. No issues. Then, you open a service request for the user maybe, or they open it, whatever. And then it turns out that they need it because the old one was broken. So in the end, there you have a gap, because you open a service request because they said they just wanted to have a new one. But in the end, it turns out it's because the old one is broken. So that would be an incident. And I mean, it's not a big issue if it happens once or twice. Sure, nothing is a big issue then. But if you then want to make some trend analysis, for example, right now we are already kind of jumping into a little bit of problem management. If you want to figure out root causes for something, you're going to analyze your incidents. You're going to look for the categories, for the users. That's what we did once. We figured out which users are opening most tickets. That was a very interesting conclusion. And that is one maybe big misconception, which I've seen in real life, that sometimes, especially business organizations, non-IT organizations, might believe that the more tickets they open, the better response times they're going to get, because then, the house must be burning if so many tickets are open. But in the end, they're just flooding the service desk with tickets. Nobody knows how much, how much of these tickets are duplicates, which are actual issues which need to be handled. And then other users who would have real issues, they would just get lost in the ticket flood.
I've been guilty of that. I think this is not fixed, and for 2 hours I don't have any response. So, okay, let's create one more. And
Yeah,
one
but
more.
you could update your ticket, right? There is a self-service, I'm 100% sure, where you can just go and say, hey, guys, what's happening? Well, in a good self-service, if we are already kind of jumping into tooling for a second, in a good self-service system, we would have these capabilities, right? Where you can, track your own ticket, you see the status, you see what's happening with it, you see all the comments and everything, which is actually commonly available in, like, I guess, all tools. But it's a question if companies are using it or not. And I've seen a lot of companies not really utilizing this kind of thing. But again, I'm jumping ahead.
Okay, so if I summarize what you mentioned, I mean, one of the biggest misconception, it was what you mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, was the distinction between a service request and an incident, right? This is a very common misconception.
Yeah, although it sounds so obvious, Okay, I have been working in this. I mean, I've been in this topic for, like, I don't know, 15 years. So for me, it's okay. But then again, I've talked to some people just recently, people from the business side who wanted to get a little bit into this whole methodology thing, ITIL, And I showed them, and they were trying to, wrap their heads around it, and it just didn't click. And then, a couple of examples later, it clicked. But still, it seems it's not so obvious as I believe it is.
Okay, but that's, I mean, obviously, you have seen it so many times that that's something which is was good to highlight. Okay, now that we have a general understanding of what incident management is about, we are going to go into the practice. So what I mean, before we do the practice, we actually need to design a process and then implement it. So my first question to you will be, what are the key steps you will follow when designing an effective incident management process?
Talking. A lot of engagement's going to happen because you're going to have a lot of stakeholders. First of all, you can think about it like this, You're going to map your stakeholders. You have users, like, who are using different services, infrastructure, hardware, whatever, on a daily basis, right? They have some needs on the incident management practice. Then you're going to have the leaders of those people because they're going to have some other some other needs, the team leads and so on, organizational leads, whatever. Then you're going to have the people who are involved on the other side, on the resolving side, right? Like the support teams, like first level, second level, whatever level teams. You could call them agents, experts, I don't know. Doesn't matter how you call them. There are different ways how you can implement it. But you're going to have like in a project management, you're going to have a stakeholder matrix where you can see which are the people who are, like, interested and powerful, and then you create the ones which you need to very closely manage, because in the end, it is a mini project to implement this. There, I would actually suggest to utilize ITIL guidance as well. We have the guiding principles, and they might help, as they would help in anything. Think about what is really valuable. Focus on value, start where you are, progress iteratively with feedback, this kind of things. Because it will help you. It's not possible to design a process like this and then it's just, everybody is happy. Maybe you start small, you create the first version of it. Maybe you take what is already there. Start where you are. You don't need to redesign the whole process or need to freshly design it from scratch. Maybe you go on the internet and search for some templates, because that's what I did. Because why should I think about everything myself if I can already utilize? Nowadays, ChatGPT, whatever, Gemini, you just ask them to design your process and they will do it. And it's okay, There's nothing wrong about that. Why not utilize technology, even if it's generic stuff, right? First, you got to try it out, see how it works out for you. Maybe you select a couple of teams who will work according to this procedure which you, or ChatGPT design, whatever. And then you'll see how it works, right? Learning by doing, that's key here as well. Small steps. And then if it works, you can, broaden it and, get all the other teams onboarded. But I would certainly suggest is setting up smart KPIs. I mean, smart, like, specific, measurable, achievable, that kind of stuff. It's harder than it sounds, but it's important. And there you got to really think about what the goal of the incident management practice is, right? And that is restoring normal service operation as quickly as possible, because there you're going to need interaction between different teams, right? Because you don't just have like one team who's taking care of everything. So you need to make sure that service desk and first level, second level, third level, I don't know, external partners, because you might have vendors, right? We're gonna support whatever application you might have bought, right? You got to make sure that they are integrated as well, and that communication works in a way which all supports the overall service which you deliver to your own customers. So you got to make sure that you have these, they're called operational level agreements between the different organizational parts. So like, answer times. I go to the network engineering team and I tell them, as a service desk, I tell them, look, guys, if we send you a ticket, we would like to have an answer within 15 minutes. It doesn't need to be a solution. It's just like, within you should commit yourself, and I commit myself, and everybody commits themselves, ideally, that whatever, in 15 minutes, there's going to be a reaction on the ticket, so it doesn't just lie around. It could also be half an hour. It could also be half a day. It depends on what SLAs you have with your customer. If you have very strict SLAs, you want to have short answer times because, yeah. Maybe you want to have some, and it's also best practice here. You might want to have some like question catalogs. I don't know, where you say that if you have a specific use case, which always goes to the network engineering team or application engineers, I don't know, that you need to answer a predefined set of questions on first level, so the service desk, already ask the customer on the phone or in the ticket or by email, whatever, what are the basic pieces of information that the second level is always gonna need, because this will reduce ticket ping pong, because that's the most annoying thing, huh? Service desk sends a ticket to the second level, and then the second level says, I'm missing this information. They send the ticket back to the service desk. They try to reach the user. The user is on vacation for 2 weeks, and the ticket waits there, and nothing's gonna happen in the meantime. All right, so maybe get it right in the first try, then you're gonna reduce, wasted time and also wasted nerves.
Okay, so I'm kind of thinking out loud, trying to summarize, because here you gave us many tips, right, on how to do a proper incident management process. But I think what stand out for me was what's the vision, right? Why do we want to do this? What do we want to achieve with that, right? So it's kind of restoring the service as fast as possible. That's one. Then second, you talk about this kind of stakeholder management. You just cannot create a process in isolation, right? So you need actually all interested parties to actually who have their say actually to say, okay, what do they want? And even I guess the one who are not interested but who could disrupt you also need to keep them informed, right? So it's kind of stakeholder management, like in a project management.
Yeah, it is.
And you said use the ITIL 4 principles, right, for doing this implementation. Also, make sure that you see, how many levels you will have, right, in terms of service level. You talk also about the service level agreement, operational level agreement, so kind of it's discussion between different parties. So it's kind of a written contract somehow, right?
Well, the OLA is not so much written usually. You can put it down. It's nothing against that you somehow note this down, that you agreed with the teams that you're gonna, your cooperation, how it's supposed to work, sure. But it's not going to be a legally binding contract. It's agreements between different parts of the same service provider organization. So it's it's not binding. It's just good to have.
It's kind of commitment that we expect.
Exactly.
Okay. Then you also mentioned this kind of, list of questions to ask, right? So, how much is expected from each, let's say, service level? That's also important. And I think also what resonated with me is that you say, start small. So it's not like kind of full scale, or we do incident management all across, the division. You first start with a part of your business to use this process. Then you get feedback, you improve it, and then you scale it over time, right? That will be your recommended approach.
Yeah, totally. Because I've tried it the other way, right? Because you said, yes, I'm a governing organization. We're going to design the process, right? And then I did all the work, designed the process, and then it was given to the group of managers who had to approve it, and they redesigned it totally, right? And then I had to implement all the new suggestions into the procedure, which I did in the end, but, it was wasted effort on my time because, I should have talked to them more beforehand.
Okay.
Lessons learned.
Do not forget the hypos, right? So
Yeah, that's right.
Highest paid person in the organization. Okay. Maybe also one thing on the design. What about incident classification and prioritization? Does this play a role? Is it important? Should we care about that?
Oh, no. Not at all.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Look, the first thing, and that's probably the hardest thing to do, is getting the prioritization right. Because the prioritization usually depends on two factors. You have impact and you have urgency. And the impact is quite easy because it's usually defined by how many people are affected, or maybe which people. And there might be, some which are more important than others.
And yeah, hippo again.
And hippo again, yes. But usually, most of the times, what I've seen in real life is it's purely based on the number of people affected. And then you can create categories like 1 person affected, 1 to 10, 10 to 100, or I don't know. You can also make it like 1 person affected, 1 team affected, 1 office affected, 1 country affected, stuff like this. It doesn't matter. You can do several levels, whatever, 3 or 4 or 5 or so on. That should be enough, mostly. Huh? And then on the other side, that's going to be the more interesting part. You're going to do the analysis of the urgency. That's like, it depends on which business application or service is affected. And you're going to have a prioritization of those. You need to know as a company what is your most important service, second most, third, fourth, and so on. You need to really have an arranged list of what is the most important stuff in your organization. And for that you do a business impact analysis. There are methodologies out there, well, how to do that. But in the end, it's a very political thing, because one business unit will tell you that their application, which is used by 2,000 people, is the most important. And the other organization in your company will tell you with their 3,000 people that their application is the most important. And then it's going to be, there might be fighting. Huh? But again, that's management stuff to decide. You can also get external help, because sometimes people listen more to external consultants. But besides that, I would just suggest, do this. Go into this fight and really get a list, because if we really have the situation, and God forbid we have it, but it might happen, that 2 of the most important applications have an issue at the same time, what you're going to do. Right, that's the point. And usually what you do is you have applications, and actually what is even more important than that is infrastructure. Because, let's see, if application, whatever is not working, doesn't matter. But if the network is not working, nothing is working, right? Or let's say Microsoft or Google authentication. You cannot log into your PC and all of your people are affected. Well, that's infrastructure issue, and it's much heavier than, let's say, one application. Anyhow, you got to make this prioritization based on, and it's important, business service. You go on business service level, you go on application level, and then you will have this order. And that's going to help you define the urgency. And then you're going to see you have for, category, for the prioritization level, you have urgency 1, most highest urgency, so to say, was going to be, a list of 5 applications. On the second tier of urgency is going to be, the 15 second most important applications, right? And then, based on that, you can calculate the priority, because it's going to be based on urgency and impact. And then you have like this, couple of fields in there, and then you will see where your priority falls based on how much the urgency and the impact is. So that's that. But it's a challenge. But you got to do it, because otherwise it's just, you're just trying to figure it out based on a feeling in your stomach. Huh? And maybe it's right, maybe it's not. But I've also seen
blame for it, right? So
yeah, that's right.
Why did you take care of this?
That's right.
When we had, such an incident going on with that application.
But then I've also seen other stuff. There was a service desk I once worked for. They had it like this. The service desk agents were not allowed to open priority 1 incidents, because that was like disaster. Okay, that was reserved for disaster. Priority 2 was major incidents, like everything that is big enough. And in that case, and it was very interesting, it was defined like this. Everything counts as a major incident where 2 or more people were affected.
Oh.
That was very strange. But for us, it made it easier, huh? As a service desk agent, I had a clear, understanding of what I should do. When the user called and said, I have my colleague and me, and I cannot print, I made a priority 2 ticket. Didn't matter, all right? For us, it was easier. But in real life, if now with all the knowledge and experiences I've gained, I think about it, it was a totally stupid system. You cannot have a major incident for 2 people. You can, but...
Unless your organization is...
Yeah. Yeah, so that's about priority, huh? And then about categorization, well, that is also... it's not that hard, but it's a lot of... it's a lot of small work. You got to put a lot of effort into it to define how the category system should work. And I would suggest to use some standards which are already available on the market. Maybe look at your ticketing tool. Maybe there already some best practice categories are implemented. First of all, you need to differentiate between incidents, service requests, problems, and so on. And then you go down. You have incidents, and you have maybe network, you have hardware, you have software, you have, configuration. You can have many different categories. And what I would suggest, and I think it's a good idea, is to have a multi-level category system, which is dependent on each other. I've also seen ticketing systems where you don't have that, and I find it hard. And for example, Jira, They usually they don't have that. You could implement it because you can build anything in Jira.
It's kind of the Jira help desk, right? Because what
Yeah.
people do not know in general, they say, okay, Jira, this is
No,
just for
Jira software as well.
development,
But Jira software doesn't have categories either. You have tags. You can put tags in the ticket, okay?
but throw that.
But it's not a category system which is dependent on each other. You know, like you have a first selection where you say it's a hardware issue, and then in the second selection, values will appear based on your first one. So if it's a hardware issue, then it could be, I don't know, a screen, a laptop, a printer, I don't know what, phone. This kind of thing, Jira doesn't have it. You could build it, again, because you can build anything in Jira, right? That's the big strength. But then most of the ticketing system have this. And then what could also be interesting is if you have this category system, again, talk to your stakeholders. You need to find out all the different infrastructure elements that you have. Maybe if you have a configuration management database in place, this might help you to figure this out, right? Because you could maybe even report it out of there. But otherwise, you got to talk to the people, to the network engineering team, application engineers, whatever, business analysts, I don't know, to figure out the list of applications, the services, the infrastructure items, and talk to these people. Because in the end, if you have a good category system, you can automate ticket routing. And that is so cool. You as a service desk agent, you just type in what the issue is. And I've seen systems like this where you just fill in the text field, like the description. And based on the description, it already finds the right category with a bit of AI, which is amazing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and then based on that, you don't need to select the support group where you want to send the ticket because it's automatically connected with the category system. If it's a network issue with the, firewall, it's automatically going to the firewall team. I mean, if you have a firewall team, maybe you just have a generic networking team in a small organization, it's also okay. This kind of thing is really cool, especially in huge organizations, because it makes it so much easier for the service desk agent to, just get it done quickly. And they need to think about, is this now, what kind of issue is this? Am I sending it to the right team? And it's reducing waiting times as well, because there is a high chance it lands with the right team first try.
Yeah, this classification is actually not obvious. So I remember sometimes I've been on kind of the supporting side, and it's kind of, well, I'm not so sure actually what should be.
And this leads me to my second thought on this one. It's good. Is you should have the possibility, well, at least if you want to do some trend analysis, to have a categorization, fields for categorization when the ticket is opened. So like what we anticipate in the beginning, what the issue might be, right? If it's maybe a network issue or whatever. And then also a couple of categorization fields when you resolve the ticket. Because then you could make a comparison if it was opened with the right category or if it turned out to be something completely different in the end. And you could use this to run some trend analysis and, do some root cause analysis maybe to figure out if there's something wrong, maybe within the knowledge of the service desk agents, or maybe the infrastructure, or maybe there is a misconception about something, whatever. You could use this.
I remember having seen that, I think, on BMC.
Yeah, Remedy had it.
Remedy, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. It was called Smart IT at that time.
Yeah, it was the
it's called Helix.
older version. Okay, so I think, we could actually even go deeper. You definitely have the background for that. But let's move on to the next topic. So we say incident management, we want to reestablish a service level as fast as possible. Now, how do you balance speed and thoroughness in incident resolution? Meaning I've seen it very often, there is an incident, somebody fix it, within 5 minutes, it's fixed. And then you go and actually that's not fixed, right? So the person saw that it's fine, it's working, maybe it worked for a couple of seconds or minutes, and then it goes down again. So this one it's not easy question, right? But how do you balance those?
Well, it's kind of hard because I don't think it's a procedural thing you will do where you tell people. I mean, where you just you kind of build this into the process. It's probably more a mindset thing where you tell your people, and it's a very good question because I actually have this in real life. I've seen this, right? Where you have the people, they are just quickly resolving all the tickets, or maybe it's not even about the resolution. It's just about keeping their queue empty.
Yeah.
Right? We make sure that there are no tickets in our queue, right? Because then we are working good, right? And the management will like it when they see that we don't have anything, and then they just shoot the tickets.
The time.
And they shoot the tickets away to all the other support teams where they are like hoarding them, right? That's also not best practice. So in the end, it's a mindset question, I believe so. So if you are a service desk manager, you need to see what your I mean, not even just service desk, any team lead for supporting teams. You got to see what the business priorities are. And if you see that there is a huge amount of work that needs to be done, and maybe you need to talk to the management and say, hey, look, guys, if you want to have, if you want to make sure that we keep ourselves to the SLAs or OLAs that we have, then we either need more resources, to be able to handle that workload, or otherwise the quality will suffer and we're just going to do it quickly. But the problem with doing it quickly is it's not getting resolved quicker. It's just, you take the workload, which would be in your team, and you just transfer it to another team because I didn't take care of it, so now they need to take care of it. And the idea would be that the incidents are taken care of at the lowest possible support level, because that sounds maybe a little bit bad. I'm not, it's not my intention, but then it will be cheaper in the end, because usually if you go service desk, you don't have so highly paid individuals as maybe in application engineering teams, or maybe even developers, because if nothing else works, you got to send it to the developer, or maybe even to external parties who will charge you, maybe not. Sometimes they charge you, for, I don't know, $200 for an hour of support. And then it's going to be a very expensive thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Usually incident management with external parties is included in the price. But also if you need to send it to the developer, look, the service desk agent had to put some time into it. The second level person had to put some time into it. And then even the developer. So it's much cheaper if you try to fix it. The shift left approach, no? That in the life cycle of an application or service, the earlier you start or you fix the issue, the cheaper it is in the end. If you can already fix it during the development phase in the life cycle, before it's even gone live, it's much cheaper then. That issue would not cost so much.
Yeah, and I think you are making a good parallel, right? When even, the application is in production and kind of, maybe it could be that on service level one, they can actually fix the issue, right? You don't maybe need to send it to level 2 or level 3. Sometimes it's just about really understanding what the incident is about. And once the problem is understood, trying different possible resolution, and then only then passing it to a next level in case you cannot solve this incident. And it's also somehow about testing, because sometimes I have found, people have kind of thought they brought a resolution, but they didn't test it properly.
Yeah.
And actually the problem is still, the incident, not the problem, but the incident is still there. Let's move on now to tools and automation topic. So without being extensive, what tools or platform have you found most effective for incident management?
Well, what I found most, as it turns out,
and we are not sponsored. We have to say we are not sponsored.
We are not sponsoring.
Yes.
No, we have not been sponsored. Huh?
Yes. But if you want to sponsor us, you are welcome.
You know how to reach us. Look, the thing is, back at that time, I was responsible for BMC, Smart IT, My IT, Remedy, that kind of stuff. I implemented it in a company, and then at that time, I wasn't really happy about it, because I've seen all the nasty parts as well. Right? But in retrospective, I must admit, it was kind of good because now I've seen Jira as well. And the thing is, with Jira, it's not a service management tool. The Jira service management extension was introduced. That is true, but it's still just a weak, sorry, Jira, sorry, Atlassian, but it's just a weak try on mimicking service management capabilities. It's just not there yet. There are missing things, which I must admit, I don't know, it's just really, really annoying. I'm not going to go into details right now. Maybe we can talk about that some other time, but maybe Atlassian will reach out and tell us to shut up. Anyhow, no bashing or no nothing, but I have my difficulties with Jira. And then besides that, what I've seen also working is ServiceNow.
Mm-hmm.
And ServiceNow is quite expensive. Okay, one must admit it's not good for every company, because you really got to have the cash to make it work, and you got to have the configure. You need to have the people who are going to configure it. You can also get it done externally. Sure, there are many consultants who do this, but it's going to be very expensive. So it might make sense to have a couple of people in house who are going to configure it. But if you configure it right, and you do not do a lot of unnecessary customizations, you will have a very strong tool in your hand, because ServiceNow has an integration in every aspect of service management. You can run projects with it. You have the agile ways. You have SAFe even in it, right? And then all the practices of ITIL you can build it, and they are integrated with each other. So you have a configuration management database, which is linked with the incident management module and problem management module and change enablement, and everything is related and connected to each other. So you have like one huge, economy, right, where everything is in there. And that can be very powerful, but it's also can be very, tricky and complex to administer in the end. And support as well. But if you have the manpower, ServiceNow is not a bad tool. And then now we only talked about big ones, from the Gartner Magic Quadrant, where you need to have like $20 million of license volume each year. But there are so many small players, and there's, for example, Freshdesk I've seen, and that kind of works nice. It's not the best tool I've ever seen, but it's good. It gets the work done, and it has a nice user interface, and it's easy to understand, and you don't need to have a huge training. It's okay, but again, there is no right or wrong. If you want to have all the necessary flexibility, if you need to be adjusting your tool very much, please go for Jira, because you can build anything in Jira, right? You can program. In the end, it's not even a ticketing tool; it's a workflow management tool, and you can configure anything in there.
Okay. So what you are saying is kind of there is no one size fits all, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the big players, BMC and ServiceNow. Then you have Jira, who used to have a lot of popularity, or probably still have, because actually of Jira software development, right? So they can work together. And then you say, well, but there are tons of other, small players. So it's all depending on your needs. And so, okay, that's good. Now let's have a look at automation. So I know nothing. I mean, automation maybe in service management, I see, but in incident management, have you seen, a place where automation really improves the resolution time? Can you give me some examples?
Yeah. Well, just as we mentioned before, categorization of tickets based on the text which you write in there, or maybe the title you write in there, that's amazing, because it could automatically send a ticket to the right support team without, you needing to think about. You could have an integration, for example, with a telephony system. A smart telephony system where when the service desk, I'm talking service desk again, and the phone rings, right? We see the incoming phone number, and then automatically a new incident ticket or whatever ticket is opened, where the user information is already pre-filled based on the phone number, because, we know to which person the phone number is assigned. I had this like 15 years ago on a service desk.
Well, pretty
cool.
I think I know nothing about automation for incident management, and you already gave me two very good examples.
Yeah, that's working. And there might be some other cases as well where some stuff is automatically resolved. Like you could have I'm going very far ahead. This is super duper high level. Not high level, but super specific automation. You could have a tool which triggers a certain script, let's say, to restart a certain virtual machine. Like you have a ticket where you need to enter the name of the VM, the host name or IP address or whatever, Mac, I don't know, and then you could have it automated that when an incident like that is opened, it automatically triggers a script which then automatically restarts that VM. So you don't need to go onto the VM itself and start menu, restart or whatever. You don't need to go to VMware, because you don't necessarily. VMware is just one option. You don't need to go to your VM management software. Maybe you don't have access rights to do that, and you could do it like this.
Okay. That make me think probably after what caused the VM to shut down in the first place.
And then we jump into problem management, but it's a very true consideration. And there it goes. You could also use automation with a trend analysis. Maybe you have a nice tool which generates very nice reports, maybe even in an automated manner. Like every week you get a report about how many incidents have been resolved here and there, or which categories, which support teams, which users. Because I had that in the past. It wasn't automated. I did this manually, but it was quite fun again with that user who opened so many tickets, which then led us to the conclusion that they are opening a ticket every time they experience an issue, even if it's the same issue, just because somebody said that, well, there are not so many tickets, so it mustn't be that bad.
Let's create more. Okay. Now, moving on, and this is maybe a question in the future, right? Like, because we are not there. Also, now you can see with AI coming that there is really a turning point. It's about over-automation. So over-automation and kind of, losing the human touch. So, how would you avoid, or how can you avoid, or is it necessary or wishable that we don't over automate and still keep this kind of human touch in incident handling.
Yeah, you should. We should. It's a very interesting thing because if you think about it, incident management is very reactive. Something bad happens, and then incident is created, and the whole procedure, the whole practice is started and everything, right? So it's very reactive. But still, you have incident management is one of the few practices where you can have a very positive customer or user impact. You have the chance to create a very positive user touch point between customer organization and service provider organization, because even if it's broken, even if the customer is a little bit unhappy about that, if you have a good agent there, a good service desk agent who takes care, also on an emotional level, and that's the thing a machine will never be able to do. Although I must revise this, because I know there is a psychiatrist on ChatGPT already, so maybe a person could do that. And
they are getting better over time. Huh?
Yeah, maybe. So for the time being, usually it's better to have a person. Because a lot of people we still have a lot of generations out there who prefer human interaction over machine interaction, and younger generations, they prefer machines already. We've seen this trend coming, and maybe they would rather use an AI chat tool than to call the service desk and actually talk to a person. But still, we still have people who are there on the human side, and I'm guessing if there's a real big issue, you will need to rely on humans.
Mm-hmm. And this makes me think that how, sometimes I've had some incidents in the past where it's not critical and I'm fine, but the way it was handled, but on the human side, was sometimes so bad that it make me so angry.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes, you have somebody really is there to understand your need and say, okay, I understand your issue. I'm really sorry. And it kind of, it make you feel better, actually.
But that's actually not the incident management practice if you think about, because it's a service desk who executes the incident management practice, right? But how you talk to people, how you have that psychological knowledge and feeling, empathy for people. That's about the service desk. It's a very important skill there, this kind of customer management skill and so on. How to talk to people, how to get them, down if they are very agitated and so on. It's rather service desk. But well, again, service desk is
a practice, right?
Yeah, and ITIL 4 is a practice. Before it was a what was it? A function? It was a function. Now it's also a practice. And it doesn't make any difference, but the main business is incident management and service request management.
Okay, cool. So thanks for that, Alex. Now let's move again to another topic under incident management, and those are metrics and KPIs. So very easy question. What are the top 3 KPIs you would recommend in incident management? And why? And why would that be those one over? Because we have like you say, right? We have tools which are great. They can do a lot of stuff. You can track a lot of metrics. But which one are for you essential and why?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, again, consultant answer depends on. It's not an easy answer at all. But usually what I see is that probably one of the most important ones would be resolution times. How much it takes for certain issues to be resolved, and that can be improved. Customer satisfaction with the handling of the incident. So you got to run, it's more a qualitative measure than a quantitative one, but you got to ask the users, right, how well they are satisfied with how it went. Usually you see like these little, you get an email with a couple of stars or a little rating you can do, how happy you were, this kind of stuff. And that's very important, because that will actually indicate the, how's it called, the NPS, the Net Promoter Score.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's it. Because you can have like, that service desk is totally incapable, they are all stupid and whatever. And the interesting thing is that users will always talk about the service desk because that's whom they contact, right? And they don't think about that there is a whole lot of other teams behind the service desk who are doing all the technical stuff, right? They're just like, IT, and that's a service desk, right? And it's okay, because the users, the customer organization, they don't need to think about. But again, that's a different thing. So I would say incident resolution times, customer satisfaction. Maybe another one which I think might be important is the wrongly routed tickets. Okay. Where the service desk opens a ticket and sends it to the wrong team, then it needs to go back to the service desk and they send it to another one, this kind of thing, this ticket ping pong stuff, because it's really annoying
Mm-hmm.
for everybody, and it's really time consuming. And maybe that's the thing it's worth measuring as well. And that is a quantitative measure, huh? Because you can see how many tickets, like usually in an ideal case, you don't have any routing at all because the service desk receives the ticket and resolves it. So you have zero, huh? And then the next best case is if you have one reassignment of the ticket, because then the service desk sent it to the right team.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that is more than one should be investigated.
Yeah, because it could also show that kind of maybe your development practices on application are not that great, right? You are creating many bugs on.
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
No, sorry,
That might
you
be.
said that incident is not about bugs, it's about something which used to work and now it doesn't work. But if you see it's going every time to higher level,
Yeah, sure.
it's a systemic problem,
Yes.
right? So
Absolutely. And again, this is the kind of root cause analysis that would actually take place with problem management. So
Yeah.
you see there are a lot of links between incident and problem management.
okay, and then well, it's a question which may not entirely belongs into incident management based on what you mentioned, but how will you use metrics to drive improvement without creating a blame culture? Like kind of resolution time. Oh, this team is solving things in 1 hour, and you guys are taking 2 days, right? So
Yeah.
you suck.
Well, again, I think it's not a technical question. That's not something you can resolve with incident management. That's probably something you resolve with, no blame culture, with psychological safety, with safe spaces where you can put the teams together and they can just, brainstorm on ideas. That's probably, I'm guessing we're getting more into coaching here, how to get the most out of this. But in the end, it's about management, huh? You need to make sure that if, stuff like this happens, you don't blame the people, and that's it. And if you hear or see this or something, you need to speak up against it. So I'm guessing it's more a psychological topic than incident management practice. But yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it because otherwise then there is no improvement. Huh? So measure the right things, measure them correctly, and always rely on accurately measured data. Never believe a hunch or a rumor or somebody is saying something about somebody else. Doesn't matter. You look at the facts, the hard facts, because that should be the baseline for every improvement initiative. Hard facts, huh? You don't have that always, I must admit, okay? But if you don't have hard facts, at least talk to different people. If somebody is telling you that the network team is not working well, maybe, gather a couple of other feedbacks as well before you start any moves on them or any escalations or whatever, because it's just, it's so subjective.
Yep. I see what you're saying. And when you say, well, it's not necessarily the people, right? It's a system sometimes. When you have a bad system, then
Yes.
that's where,
Might
people
be.
will actually blame each other. Okay, now let's move into real life scenarios. So can you tell us about a memorable high priority incident you had? Something kind of major, shit is coming to your desk.
Oh yeah, there were a couple of, unfortunately. And one of the risks which I'm seeing nowadays, and actually it isn't even one, it's more like it's happening quite often, or it happened quite often in the last time, is because of all that cloud outsourcing, right?
Yep.
You put all your services in the cloud, and when the cloud is down, then it's just like, you sit there and you wait. And one of those incidents was our authentication, Microsoft authentication, didn't work anymore, so people couldn't log into their PCs, and nothing worked, like nothing, not even my phone. I couldn't call anybody.
Oh,
I couldn't send an
That's
email,
major.
nothing. So there was a major incident, and usually the first, what I've seen in real life, what people most, especially managers, mostly appreciate about major incident management is if they are regularly informed. That they have a peace of mind where it's okay, IT is taking care of it, everything will be fine, that kind of thing. And I couldn't do that, and people were panicking. Right, what's happening? And I wasn't in the office, unfortunately, on that day, so they couldn't even walk to me. So there was a major incident, I noticed, and the only thing I could do is send a pigeon to the office with smoke signals. I don't know. But that was a very interesting conclusion, because we figured out that we will need some backup phones which are not connected to the company infrastructure.
okay. That was going to be my question. What was your learning out of it, right?
Yeah,
And-
this.
okay, that's a backup.
We had to have separate infrastructure. That was our kind of business continuity then, and
Yep.
we can switch over somewhere else. But it was interesting. It was fun, and it took long. It was like 4 or 6 hours downtime. The whole company offline, and it goes further. It was a Microsoft outage, so half of Europe was down.
Oh yeah, I think it made the news.
Yeah,
right,
it made
at
the
that
news.
time.
So we were just a very small fish in that issue. So Microsoft had other bigger clients than us. But yeah, it's a risk of going cloud, huh? Because if the cloud is down, then everything is down.
That's why you see that this disaster recovery plan, right, is not just for fun, right? So
No, you
you
need to have it.
definitely need to have
Yeah.
those. Okay, good. So, well, okay, I'm pretty sure you could talk for hours about the different,
Good.
you know.
Maybe in the next podcast.
Yes, next podcast can okay only on real life incidents that Alex handled. Now, maybe let's move into people and culture. So, incident management, you have the process. So, the process is one thing, but living it is something else. Now, how do you build a strong incident management culture across teams? Especially when they are siloed, right? So in case they do
Well,
not
yeah.
report to the same actually VP or senior VP. So how do you make
Mhm.
sure that everybody does it correctly? Because I've seen it, right? In some organizations, some teams are very diligent about incident management and are really serious about it. And other kind of, it's not that they could not care less, but it's close to that.
Very interesting topic, not so easy to answer. First of all, KPIs again. And I would like to highlight the fact it's not about incident oriented thinking. It's more like service and customer oriented thinking, which you wanna establish here. And this kind of service thinking, like we are the service provider. I am a service provider for my stakeholders. My team is a service provider for their stakeholders, even if it's internal customers or users. It's very important. Even then, you are a service provider. IT is always a service provider, right? And unless IT itself is the business, like software development companies might be different, but any other company, the IT, even if it's insourced, is a service provider. So you need that kind of service-oriented thinking where you see that, look, IT is there to support the business and not to lead the organization, because that happens often. And the companies get very IT-heavy because, it's true, you cannot do anything without IT nowadays, but if IT, uses this and, kind of takes over the unofficial leadership of the company, that's not good. Yeah? So service-oriented thinking. And then measurable targets, which are, and here comes the difficult part. If you don't have VPs or, high-level managers who are pushing it down into all parts of the organization, then you have an issue, because it should come from there.
Yeah.
There should be a culture on top of the organization where you say, hey, look, guys, everybody is service-oriented. We have our vision, we have our strategy, we have our functional strategies, and we have, for each department, we have their goals, right? This kind of goal cascade, which is also very well described in COBIT. Anybody who did COBIT will know. If not, do it. Because it will tell you, how the practices of ITIL should be measured, and how all those KPIs and critical success factors and critical practice factors should fit into the higher level goals. And if you have this, then you can put it in there, right? Service-oriented thinking. All the incident teams should have the same KPIs, maybe with a little bit different numbers behind it, with different goals. That's okay, but still the same KPIs. And then they will also start pulling into the same direction. But if you have conflicting goals, then it's an issue. And you need to be, you really need to set smart targets again, because on a service desk, you could have, I wouldn't recommend it, okay, please don't do it, in my opinion, but you could have a measure which says how many incidents are resolved per day. And you will get very different numbers for a service desk agent than for an engineer. Because the engineer will work 8 hours on the same issue because it's a freaking hard case, right? And the service desk agent will resolve 15 tickets in an hour because it's just, I don't know, a printer needs toner.
Yeah, that will not be, this is not the
It
same.
doesn't make sense, right?
Yes.
It's like, yeah. So, I wouldn't do it. But that's still, if you have KPIs, the same meaningful KPIs for different parts, different teams, just adjust the goals behind those KPIs, because you cannot use the same numbers. Doesn't make sense.
So what you are saying is kind of management need to lead the way and say, okay, incident management is key actually for service management in our organization.
Yes.
We want really that everybody is on deck and able to actually resolve the incident as soon as possible. And also maybe, those metrics, I guess you need transparency also among all the teams, right? It cannot be just, I have my metrics, but I'm not showing you what my team is doing, right? I think it needs to be visible and transparent to all. and then management need to be there also, but to support, not to blame teams which are
Yes.
maybe not doing well, but instead encourage them, right? So
And that's again a mindset question, right? Because you can take those measures, as you said, and then just blame people. But if you use it as the foundation, we said it before, for continual improvement, accurately measured data as a foundation for continual improvement, and you give the people the trust, that then they will improve, right? Especially if it's part of their goal definition, then they will do it. But yeah, again, it's very hard. It's a cultural thing, and I've seen it as well. Incident management is not the most attractive task within an organization. You can easily distinguish between the run part of the organization and the change part, right? Run is keeping stuff working, right? It's kind of a must. Yeah, you need to do it because otherwise, you're going to run into the next wall. But the change part, that's the fun part. There, the projects happen, or the development happens. You get new applications, you get new projects. That's the things managers tend to like more, because that's the stuff which looks good on your CV as well. I have run this project where we have implemented this new application for 100,000 people in the organization. It was the biggest success of my life, right? Nobody will look into your CV and look for how many incidents they resolved, or how many major incidents they had. Because that would be an interesting metric, no? How many major incidents? Because the lower it is, the better, right? It should be 0. But nobody looks at that.
Yeah, well, it depends on the quality of the application you are supporting.
That's the point. But it's the run part. That's the not fun part of business.
Yes, true. Well, I guess somebody will look at it in your CV if they are looking for an IT service manager. How many applications were under your, kind of support? Okay, let's move on. Maybe for practical tips or advice you will have for frontline support staff. Because let's face it, for me at least, if I've done a bit of support in my life, that's tough. I found it tough. So which advices will you have for them, frontline support staff?
Yeah, learn to Google or ChatGPT or use any AI. It's so fun because having a good, it's not incident management I'm talking about now, it's about knowledge management, but it's also a very important thing happening on first line, right? Because you need knowledge articles, you need information available to you so you can resolve the issues which are commonly known to happen now and again. But then it also happens that you don't have a predefined knowledge article, and just, maybe it's good if you take a little step extra, maybe you do a little extra mile, maybe it's just an extra foot, I don't know, and you just try to utilize the technological capabilities which are available. I don't say there is a solution there always, but it's amazing how many times I've seen service desk agents sending tickets to second level teams who are already swamped with tickets, and more important, that's because they don't work only incident management, right? They work on projects and changes and whatever, all other things, right? For them, incident management is just a small part of their daily business, while for service desk, it's the main part of their business, right? Daily business. So tickets which have been sent to second level teams, which could have been Googled within 2 minutes. And I'm like, please make the effort, because it's cheaper for everybody, it's easier for everybody, and it's less frustrating for everybody if you do this little extra mile to try it on your own, instead of sending it to the second level guys who will be pissed because why did you send this ticket? We already told you that you can do this, whatever. And this kind of conflict can be kind of prevented. So I would say, maybe take the extra mile. It's also good for a learning effect, right? Because you gain experience. And if you found a solution, then maybe put it in your knowledge base so it's easier to find the next time. Or maybe put it in the ticket so it can be searched for. That might be a good idea.
What about the customer service skills? Because I found it, sometimes you have some, I will call them customers, right? The person who called you actually for the incident.
Yeah.
They're kind of difficult to handle sometimes, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Some people are angry and kind of just shoot at you, and any tips? Because I guess it's not okay. No,
well, yes.
Thank you. Call back in a minute. And think.
Do not take it personally. I did this in the beginning. Every time I had a frustrated customer, I felt it like my own personal responsibility to fix their view on the world, right? And you get too much engaged with them, it's gonna have an effect on you. You're gonna have a really bad day if you try. If you get too closely attached to this emotionally. But so you need to handle them, and that's why it's a mindset change here, where you need to tell yourself that it's not your issue that the customer is mad. The customer is mad, or the user is mad. It's true. You need to take care of it, but they are not mad at you. And then there are some little tips and tricks which you can do. Like, I mean, in the end, what works often if you have a customer who is fuming, they're ranting on about how everything is bad and broken again, I don't know, and incompetent people, and blah, blah, blah. You can call them by their name. And people listen to their name instinctively somehow. And it's some kind of psychological stuff behind it. I don't know what it is exactly. But even if you are very deep in thoughts or you are deep in another task or whatever, but you still hear your name if somebody is calling it. Even if they didn't mention you, it's just somebody mentioned your name. You go to, huh, what? Because, I don't know, somehow it's wired into your brain that you listen to your brain. So you can interrupt the customer, but in a careful way.
Okay, so don't make it personal.
No.
Use the customer by their first name or maybe family name in case.
Yeah. In a more formal way. Look, sometimes the users, they get personal, huh? And if that's the case, I mean, usually you don't need to, you don't need to let that happen. If they start being personal and then calling you stupid or something, you just, look, dear customer, I'm very sorry. You are agitated right now. We cannot continue this on a professional level. So I'm going to put down the phone and I'm going to call you back in, I don't know, half an hour. And then that's also
Did it happen to you, actually?
Yes, it happened.
Yes?
It happened. I mean, it was advised to us by our boss back at the time at the service desk. So there might be service desks who are not allowing this kind of, that you just put down the phone with this information. But we were allowed because, I mean, in the end, you're a human being. And
Yes, true.
and it's not your fault that something is not working. You are there to take care of it and to help them. And if the user is not capable of understanding this because they are already so agitated, well, then maybe they need to take a break. Maybe, I don't know, smoke a cigarette or I don't know, have a drink and then, come back to the topic later.
Okay.
But yeah, that's also okay. And otherwise, listening, active listening, that's good. You cannot look into the eye of the people, right? Because you don't have webcam. Usually, I've never seen a video service desk, but that might be something funny. Usually, it's you just have the phone, right? You talk to the people, and then you can actively listen with a bit of yes, I understood, okay, noted, something like this.
You know what? That make me think now with, I mean, AI is going so fast and so far that maybe soon you could have this with an AI actually.
Yeah.
And you might not even know it's an AI. But
Yeah.
we are going, I mean, I think I have one question for you
Okay.
on this AI. So let's move on maybe to continual improvement. And so you get lessons you can have lessons learned when you solve incident. Now, how do you make sure that they go into your service improvement initiative? That incident that you have resolved, you learn something out of it. How maybe do you improve the process? How do you get maybe people to be a bit more smarter next time?
Again, very good question. Depends on, but usually what you would have is at least somebody who is responsible for the practice, a practice owner or a process owner, you could call it, or a process manager, or somebody who is responsible for incident management in your organization. There must be somebody who designed the process and who's making sure that people know about it, that it's reflected in your ticketing system or in the other workflows, that it's integrated with the other practices which you have, which you utilize. So that would be the minimum to go there to this practice owner, practice manager person, and just, tell them, look, here's this. We had the lessons learned. This is what happened. Ideally, they would already be involved in the first hand. That's if you do like a post-implementation review or something. It's good to have the practice manager in there, especially if you have, for example, a major incident, because with major incidents, you should always do a post-mortem, right? A lessons learned session, and then the practice manager should be there to have the info firsthand. That's the ideal case, that you get these people onboarded. Another option would be, in bigger organizations, might happen that you have what's called continual improvement register, which is like a database, an Excel file, maybe a ticketing system, I don't know, special support team or something, where you can actually report any improvement idea you might have. And then there are people behind that team, like continual improvement people. And what they will do is they're going to categorize it and they're going to prioritize it and then assign it to the right people to take care of. That might happen as well. I've seen this, but usually only in bigger organizations. Smaller ones do not really have the capacity to do that. And there people just go to the practice manager and then it's good enough. But it should be done. And again, it's not a managerial task to do this, but it's a managerial responsibility to promote this, to allow time and space and budget for continual improvement and not just being in the hamster wheel Monday, Friday, a whole day, every day, but, have some time where you actually try to, concentrate on improvement, because otherwise, especially on a service desk, there's going to be so much work. They're going to be always in a hamster wheel.
Yeah. And then maybe also you have a lot of staff turnover and kind of you need to make sure that kind of those practices are being lived and that, the service management process, is also updated in case, there are changes and so on. Okay. But I think also what I got from what you said is major incident, right? There must be a root cause analysis, and then this is where probably you have big learnings, like you have seen with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Okay, one more following up question on that, and we talk about incident and problem. So, how do you know it's a one-off incident versus that's a systemic problem, deeper systemic problem? What's...
You don't necessarily know. Sometimes it's maybe you just have a hunch. You think major incidents, it's a different thing. Okay, in real life, most of the times you should have a problem related to the major incident, because a major incident, you need to firefight. And the first priority is somehow putting out the fire. It doesn't matter how, even if you have a workaround, good enough. If it works, maybe you restart the server or whatever, and then it works again. Good, Fire put out, and then starts the investigation, and that would be already a problem, which you create a problem ticket, you link it to that major incident, and then you can close the major incident, and the work continues in a problem ticket with all the necessary support people, and it's a very simultaneous process. So everybody looks from there, and it's not linear like incident management where first team looks, they didn't find it, second team looks, they didn't find it, and so on. But it's like all of them work on this at once and try to figure out the cause of the issue.
Swarming kind of.
Yeah, swarming.
All hands on deck to try to solve.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Same happens also in major incidents. If we don't know what the major incident is about, just get all the people in. War room, situation room. You take out your energy drinks and stuff, and then...
Let's say if I talk about low priority incidents. So how do I know, an incident is right? Is it an incident, or is there a problem behind?
You don't know firsthand.
Never.
You don't know first. No, not necessarily. You could have a hunch. Might be the case, right? But usually you don't. Well, what happens then afterwards is maybe if you have multiple of those, maybe somebody recognizes it, right? Usually not the service desk, because service desks are often bigger. Not always. So there is a possibility that even a service desk recognizes that there might be an underlying cause. So it's not, it might be. But usually it's second level teams or other teams, because the service desk might open several tickets and they don't know about each other, because maybe there are 50 people working on a service desk and one ticket was opened by him and her and whatever. Right, and then the second level team who receives all these tickets, they will see, oh, look at this. This is already the third ticket with the same issue within the last, 10 hours or 2 days or whatever. And then they might say, look at this. Maybe we should analyze. Let's open a problem ticket, link those incidents all together to that problem, and then do a root cause analysis, provide a workaround, do a root, and so on. And another thing which you could do, and here is the cool part about problem management, is it's kind of preventive as well. It's kind of proactive as well, not only reactive, because you might do trend analysis. You might do regular trend analysis on incident data. Again, categorization, prioritization, users, whatever content of those incidents tickets could be analyzed to find out what's happening. In an ideal world, you have a ticketing system where also the configuration items are put into the ticket, like which server or which application or which printer or which whatever was affected by that issue. And then you could run an analysis on that, and you look into your CMDB, into your configuration management database, and you could figure out which are the config items which had the most incidents last month, right? And then you see, there is a printer which was down 15 times. Let's open a problem.
Okay, make total sense to me. And now I see better the connection between incident and problem. So, okay, thanks. Now I see, how that, continual improvement will work, and, again, the connection between problem and incident. Now, I think looking at the time, right, for this podcast, we are over time compared to what we originally planned. So we are going to make a second part on incident management. We'll have those questions which I still have for you. and I believe pretty much other question, because I still feel that there is a lot to deep dive into, and I'm pretty sure that our audience will be interested by that. So for the moment, thank you all for joining us. We hope that you learn, some things or many things, and we look forward to see you in our next podcast. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.